all he could get out is, "Oh no, they hurt my baby." And he started crying. And he woke my mom up. And he said, "You hang in there, we're on our way." So every single day, I worked. I worked at a local Great Flips out there. And I went in from the time it opened to the time it closed. That following morning, after all this had happened, I went to my bank account and to my savings. I've been saving money through this whole entire time, but I've been using it since we were out there so I can help support my kids and myself. But little did I know that Christopher wanted me to use all my money because he didn't want me to have anything so I wouldn't retain a lawyer. So that morning before I went to work and dropped my kids off, at the time, Michael and Linda, which is Christopher's biological father, and his stepmother were still helping me watch my kids because I still had to work. And I went into my bank account, and I remember I only had $1,100 in there. And I was looking through the phone book or looking through, my phone and seeing, well, I need to get a lawyer. Who can I get? Thank God for Mr. Edwards, because I went into his office before, I called into work that day pretty much, and I said, I need to just think. I said, I need a day off. So I went into his office, and I ended up doing a consultation with him. And I remember him, he told me what his fees were, and he told me, I told him the situation. And he was in shock, and he goes, "My God," he goes, "this all happened? Like, you should have never came out here." And I said, "I know, I should have never came out here." So at the time, I explained the situation to Mr. Edwards, and I was crying. And I said, "Mr. Edwards," I said, "I just want my baby back." And then I remember I still had my wedding ring on at that point in time. And I slipped off my wedding ring and I sat it on his desk. And he looks at me and I said, "Please, sir, I would do anything just for my baby back." He said, "You're all I have. Please help me." I remember he took out his little magnifying glass and he looked at it and he put his head down. And he goes, "God," he goes, "I work for money." I said, "And I know, sir." I said, "And I promise I will pay you every dime that I can. Just help me bring my baby home." And he said, "You got yourself a lawyer." And he fought. He fought like hell for Faith. We went to, everything happened in Gallatin Courthouse. My parents were there. We went to the first trial, and I remember walking in the courthouse and my stomach was turning. I hadn't seen my baby. And they had my baby there. Just in just in arm's reach, and I couldn't even hold her, and I couldn't even kiss her, and I couldn't even tell her I love her. So we went to trial. I don't know what you want to call it, a trial, a hearing. I think I was just so oblivious to everything at that point because I was so heartbroken that my baby was gone. And I go into the courtroom, and all I had was my dad in there. And their side, all the benches filled up with his family being loud and laughing. And it was just my daddy and me, Mr. Edward. And I remember the judge, his attorney, just everybody in there. All the hurtful things that they put on black and white about me. Just the eyes glaring at me and making it seem like I was a bad person. And I sat there. And he asked me a couple of questions, and I answered. One of them was, "Why did you move out here, Miss Broadfoot?" I said, "Your Honor, to try to make my marriage work." I said, "In which it didn't." I said, "I made a mistake by coming out here. I made a mistake by trusting somebody. And I said, if I could change back the hands of time, I probably wouldn't have even came out here." And they did whatever they were doing, and then the judge, said that I only had visitations with Faith, and they all had to be supervised. So then the supervised visitations started happening, and we would visit Faith. And I remember one visitation that had happened at a park. I can't recall the park's name, but there was a duck pond and really nice playground for the kids. And I remember Cathy showing up with Faith. And we all sat there, got Faith out of the car seat. I was loving on her and kissing her and telling her how much I love her, how much we missed her. And I handed her to her big sister. And I took a picture of those two. And my oldest daughter was crying. We only had about, I believe it was between 20 and 30 minutes of visitation with Faith once a week, if I'm right. There's a lot of things that after so many years, it's hard. Like, I would just remember, like, the big things that happened, and that was one of them. It was between 20 and 30 minutes. And my son was there. And then Cathy got her ready to leave. They had to leave first, and then we left after. I remember holding my son and my daughter's hand, and we're walking back to my vehicle. And my son started crying. And I started crying, and then my daughter started crying. And he said, "Mama, I'm going to run super fast, Mama. I'm going to go grab Faith, and you meet me on the other side of the park, Mama. I'm going to run so fast, and then you drive off, Mama." The pain that Christopher and his family has brought to my family is pain that we'll never forget. Pain that we live with every single day of our lives. And I remember that very clear. And we went home. We had another trial a couple weeks later. Was I believe I want to say it was in maybe November, either in October or November. I can't recall the date. But at that trial, I was praying to God and to my God that we were going to bring Faith home. And we went to that courthouse, and with my mom and dad and Isabella and Noah. At this point in time, my mom was going to testify against Christopher. My daughter was going to testify against Christopher. And they had said, his lawyer at the time had said, don't let her daughter testify. And so we went without it, nobody testifying that day. Christopher had ended up getting, he was talking at the time. Judge was asking him all kinds of questions. And he made me look like a monster. He made me look like I was the problem. He made me feel awful about myself and saying all these things in front of these people that weren't even true. It wasn't even true. And then it came to my attorney talking. And at that point in time, I was just like, gosh, like, oh God, please let a miracle. Just like, let this just be over with. when people tell lies and when they say hurtful things about you, you just feel so disgusting about yourself. And that's the way I felt. And I remember we needed to break and come back. And Mr. Edwards at that point in time went into the chambers with the judge. And I don't know what was being said, being done back there, but he was in there for a while. And he ended up coming back out. Court was back in session. Everything was, we were going back and forth again. And at some point in time, the judge just had enough. The judge was done hearing everything that had happened. And Christopher, was speaking, and the judge just said, that's enough. Like, I don't want to even hear what you have to say anymore. He's like, you premeditated this. This was premeditated. You knew exactly what you and your family were doing. You brought this woman out here with her children, and you guys knew exactly what you were doing. And he said, 8:30, Gallatin's Sheriff's Department, that's where the exchange is going to happen. My heart just dropped, like, and my attorney looks at me and he said, you just won. You won. And I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit my knees, and all I could think about is, I couldn't wait to wrap my arms around my baby again. And the judge, everybody was hysterical on his side, of course, and my daughter and my mom were waiting out there. And I remember his uncle going out there, and he swung open the door, and he was so angry. And my daughter overheard him say, she won. She won. And I remember my dad was still sitting behind me, and and he had tears in his eyes, and he's like, let's go. And my attorney followed me outside, and we went out, and there was just so much chaos coming from the Proudfoots. And we went outside very humbly, and he took us in back of the courthouse the other way. And right there and then I hit my knees. I finally could be relieved, like a big, oh my God, we did this. And he said, 8:30, go pick her up. I said, thank you, Mr. Edwards. I said, I owe you my life to get you helped me get my baby back. So then we went back to our truck, and we went back to the apartment. We packed what we could, and we pretty much left everything else behind in the storage unit. At that time, I didn't need anything. Because I had everything I've ever wanted. So I remember my dad saying, come on, we gotta go. So we went to the sheriff's department, and